Okay, today we're finishing the parak of Erla Ba'asar, the first parak of Masechta Pesachim, and we're going to start the second parak of Masechta Pesachim of parak Kol Shra. So we're just finishing talking about the long past few Amudim. We're speaking the laws of Tumah and Beis Hamikdash. So today we're finishing off with that sugya, and we're going to start the new Geshmak sugya speaking about chametz on Pesach. So we're going to start today Daf Chafal from the top of the Amud. First line, Amr Rabbi Yesi. Says the Gemara, Amr Rabbi Yesi B'Chanina says, Machlekes shenaflu lepachis memea sa'ach chulin tmeh. So we had a machlekes a few times. I think you learned about it yesterday and 2 days ago, that machlekes Rabbi Elazar and Yeshua in a case of if you have wine from a barrel falling into a barrel of truma, and it's falling into a barrel of chulin. The wine is falling into a barrel of chulin. So again, the truma is falling into the chulin, and it's going to become tummy. The question is, are you able to be matame the wine before? Are you able to be makabel the wine in the kli before it comes into the chulin or not? So Rabbi Yeshua says that that you can't, and Rabbi Elazar says you could. So it says the Gemara, meaning, are you able to matama something, even if it's going to become tummy anyway, or are you able to matama something with your hands, as opposed to becoming tummy b'derech mela? So says the Gemara, the machlekes, the whole machlekes of Yeshua and Elazar is only speaking about shenafla lepachis v'mea sa'chun tmeim, that the truma was falling into a barrel that has less than 100 times the wine that's going to fall into the barrel. Meaning, you have, let's say, 1 cup, 1 revius of truma, which is going to fall into 100 reviusin, 90 or 98 reviusin of chulin wine. Why? Because what do we care if it falls into 98 barrels of 98 gallons, let's say, of chulin wine? Because the thing is that truma is bottled in 100, 1 in 100. I mean, if you have 100 barrels of wine and you have 1 barrel of wine that falls in 1 barrel of truma that falls into 100 barrels of regular wine, so the din will be that'll be bottled. The problem is if you have 98 barrels of wine and you have 1 barrel of truma falls into the 98 barrels of wine, the din is that all those 98 barrels will now be 100% asur. So says the Gemara, that was not machlekes. If you're able to divert the wine divert the truma going into the chulin or not, is only in the case that if the truma is going to fall into the chulin, you're going to have a huge loss. You're going to have a loss of 98 barrels of wine. Says the Gemara further, if the truma is going to fall into 100 times its amount of chulin, according to everyone, according to Elazar, according to Yeshua, the din is you should let the truma fall into the chulin, because what do we care if the truma falls into the chulin? Let the truma fall into the chulin. The truma is going to come bottle anyway. The only problem is it's going to become tummy. It's going to make the other things tummy. It doesn't matter if chulin becomes tummy. If chulin becomes tummy, you can still eat it. It's not a problem. So therefore, there's no problem. Everyone agrees you should not touch. You shouldn't divert the wine falling into. You should just leave it and to fall into a big barrel of chulin, because it's not going to become tummy anyway. That which Rabbi Yeshua let you be matame truma with your hands is only in the case that you're going to have a big loss. Let's say you're going to have 98 barrels of truma, 98 barrels of chulin, which are going to go into loss. So because it's going to be mixed with truma, so Rabbi Yeshua said that you're able to divert the truma going into them. If you don't, if you're not going to have a big loss, like in our case, because you have 100 times wine anyway, so therefore the truma is going to be bottled. So if truma is going to become bottled, then it's not a problem. So the Gemara brings a brayso to prove this. We have this in a brayso. Brayso says, if you have a barrel that broke in the first level, meaning the first store, the first line of barrel, and on the second barrels, in the second vineyard, in the second olive press, meaning the second level, you have mea chulin, you have 100, let's say 100 barrels of wine which are tummy with a chulin. And Yeshua both agree, able to somehow divert the truma mixing in. So you should do that, because obviously it's better that the truma doesn't mix in with the chulin. But if for whatever reason you cannot save the truma falling into the chulin, with Tardik Kelim, then Tered V'Titma, you should let the Truma fall into the Chulum Dika barrels. You should not get the Truma Tame with your hand. And even though when the Truma falls into the Chulum, it's going to become Tame because it touched now Chulum. But it doesn't matter, since it's better that it should become Chulum by itself as opposed to you making it Tame. The Gemara just finishes off with a small side detail. Says the Gemara, "Hi, made it Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua, made it Rabbi Shua Rabbi Lezer." Why does the Gemara say that Rabbi Lezer has made it to Rabbi Shua? That in this case you're able to let you shouldn't be matame the wine, and let the wine fall into the chulin. It's shade the other around. Made it Rabbi Shua Rabbi Lezer. The only one who was answering it until now was. The only one who was saying you shouldn't matame was Rabbi Shua. So in this case, the Gemara should say that in this case, Rabbi Shua has made Rabbi Lezer that you shouldn't touch the wine and let it flow in, as opposed to saying the other order that Rabbi Lezer made Rabbi Shua. It doesn't make sense to say Rabbi Lezer made Rabbi Shua. So Amar Rava, the first time it says Epoch, turn it around it. Instead of it saying made Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shua, the Girsa was actually made Rabbi Shua to Rabbi Lezer. That in this case it would be mutter to let the wine fall into the. And that if the chulin is going to be mevatel the truma, since in this case it's not hefsed, you should just leave the wine fall into the chulin. The son of Meshua has a different answer. Don't change the gears around. My skin on that was over here sitting on a special case. What's the case? The case is beklisha teichi toy the gabi tummy. You have a vessel that the inside of the vessel is toy, but the side of the vessel, meaning the outside surface of the vessel, is tummy. So the inside of the bowl is tummy, the inside of the bowl is toy, and the outside is tummy. So now what? Now the tema, I might have thought that according to Rabbi Lezer said you cannot be matame tumah with your hands, meaning you cannot, even though the tumah is going to go and become nullified, the tumah is going to go and become it when it reaches the bowl, but you cannot be matame the tumah with your hands. So Dilma Naga Bagabi Truma, maybe Nigzer Dilma Naga Bagabi Truma. Let's be geyser that maybe if the wine that's falling into this vessel, even though the inside of the vessel is tied, but maybe it's going to touch the outside of the vessel. And if it's going to touch the outside of the vessel, it's going to become tummy. Kamash Malan. Therefore, the Brisa teaches us that Monach Cheshish is going to touch the outside of the vessel. And since Monach Cheshish is going to touch the outside of the vessel, Rabbi Lezer says you should just leave the truma fall into the vessel, and it's not going to become tummy, and let it stay that way. Okay, so now we've done. I understand it was a bit of a hard sugya. Now we've done the sugya of tummy. We're not going to come back to it for quite a while. Getting back straight into Pesachim, speaking about chametz and Pesach. Says the Gemara. Says the Mishnah Perikol Shah, the second Perik of Pesachim. The Mishnah says like this: Kol Shah. Says the Mishnah, any time Shemuta Lecha, any time that it's mutter, the Mishnah is giving rules on how the rules of chametz. When is chametz aser? When is chametz mutter? When is chametz aser to have benefit from it? When is it mutter to have benefit from it? The Mishnah says the rule: Kol shah shemuta lecha machel. Kol shah shemuta lecha. Any time of the day that it's mutter to eat chametz. Machil, you're also able to, in that time, you're able to feed chametz, the behema, to animal, the chaya, or the efes, or to into wild animals and birds. And so to meichel and nachi, in that time, you're also able to sell it to a guy. Mutter ba'nas, and you're able to have hana from it. So the first rule in the Mishnah is, any time that it's mutter to chametz, let's say now, it's 11 o'clock Erev Pesach, if now is mutter to chametz, then that time is also mutter to feed to a dog and to sell to a guy. As soon as the time to eat chametz is over, meaning now it's aser to eat chametz, then it doesn't only become aser to eat chametz, but that may also becomes aser to have benefit from chametz. And since it's aser to have benefit from chametz, you shouldn't even use the chametz to use it as firewood or as burning material for your oven, because through using as burning material for your oven, you're having benefit from it, and therefore it's aser to have benefit from chametz. So the rule is time that it's mutter to chametz is mutter to have benefit from it in any way, and time that it's aser to chametz is aser to have benefit from chametz in any way. How are you supposed to get rid of chametz? So we have machlekes Rabbi Shua and Chacham. Rabbi Yehuda and Chacham. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ein bir chametz ela seifa." the mitzvah of your chametz is to burn it. The only way to get rid of chametz is to burn it, and we actually do it nowadays. We burn our chametz. That's one opinion. The Chacham say you don't actually have to get rid of the chametz by burning it. You have another option. You could take the chametz and crumble it up and throw it in the air, meaning now the chametz is unedible anymore, even though the chametz is still physically here, but it's still unedible. Or you have another option of taking the chametz and dumping it into the sea, and that would eventually make it unedible also. So I have a machlokes in Rabbi Chacham how to get rid of chametz. Rabbi says you have to get rid of the etzem, the entity of chametz, by burning it, and therefore it's completely, the entity is not here anymore. And Chacham say you don't have to get rid of the entity of chametz. You could just take the chametz and get rid of the texture and make it unedible. Says the Gemara, said in the Mishnah that anytime it's mutter to your chametz, Michael, you're able to give the chametz to your animal to eat. Is medaik. The Gemara is medaik in the Mishnah. Hakol shah mutter lechel. From the fact that the Mishnah says that any hour that you're able to eat chametz, you're able to have a benefit from chametz, is mashma the other way around also. That any hour that you cannot eat chametz, you also cannot have benefit from chametz. Meaning there's no such time that it's also to eat chametz and you can start benefit from it. From the Mishnah, it's mashma that there's no such time that a time in the day that from one hand will be also to eat chametz, on the other hand will be mutter to eat chametz. Why? Because any time that it's mutter to eat chametz, it's mutter to have benefit. Anytime that's also to eat chametz, it's also to have benefit. So they must listen to the Rabbi Yehuda. So if that's what we mean in the Mishnah, then the Mishnah cannot go according to Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda said, we learned this a few times before. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the Mishnah will go according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's a time of the day which is the 5th hour in the day. That on the one hand, it's asit chametz, but on the other hand, Michael. On the other hand, you're still able to feed the animal according to Rabbi Yehuda, the 5th hour of the day. On the one hand, you cannot eat chametz, but if you want to feed it to your dog, you're able to feed it to your dog. So from here we see a contributor that on the one hand it's for you other, but for others it's mutter, which would contradict the Mishnah, which means that the Mishnah cannot go contributor because the Mishnah says that any time that it's usher to chametz, it's also usher to feed anyone else. Where do we see the opinion of Yehuda? Ditnan, because we learned the Mishnah, we learned it already in Yidalf and Beis, we already learned it before. That the Mishnah says, Yehuda says, Rameya says that we eat chametz the whole 5th hour. The sefer mitchila sheish, and we burn chametz the beginning of the 6th. So as soon as the 5th hour is over, we stop eating chametz and we burn it straight away. That is Rameya shita. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Eichlin called arba, we eat chametz the whole 4th hour. As soon as it hits the 5th hour, the toilin, we stop eating chametz, but we don't burn it yet. The toilin called chametz, we stop eating it, we don't burn it, we just stop eating it. And we burn it in the beginning of the 6th hour. What's in mashma? It's mashma from Rabbi Yehuda that what? That on the 5th hour it's also to eat chametz, but he doesn't say that you have to burn it, which is mashma that you can still feed it to a dog, or you could sell it to a guy, or you could do whatever you want with it as long as you don't eat it. The Mishnah cannot go according to Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, if so, who does the Mishnah go according to? It goes according to the Meir. Then Lamai, who does the Mishnah go according to? The Meir. It goes according to the Meir. Says the Gemara, I have another problem. Why? Why does the Mishnah say, "Hi, kol shosha muter lechel meichel"? Why does the Mishnah say anytime that it's muter to eat chametz, it's muter to have benefit from it? The Mishnah should just say, "Kol shosha eichel meichel." The Mishnah should just say anytime that you are eating chametz, you're able to feed chametz. Why does the Mishnah stick in the extra word, "Kol shosha muter lechel chametz"? Anytime that it's muter to eat chametz, that word is extra. Said the Gemara, Rabbi Barula says, the Mishnah doesn't go according to Meir. The Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Gamliel. And through the Mishnah being according to Rabbi Gamliel, we're going to understand why the Mishnah sticks in the word mutter. Why? Because now it says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel says, Rabbi Gamliel says, if you have mundane chametz, you have cereal in your closet, you're able to eat it the whole 4th hour. At the beginning of the 5th hour, you have to stop eating it. On the other hand, truma, if you're a kohen and you have truma cereal inside your closet, kol chamesh, you have the extra hour to eat the truma, meaning the whole 5th hour. And we burn it. Everyone burns the chametz together. Saif it's truma, and saif it's cholin. Beginning of the 6th hour. So if you're kohen, you have the extra hour to eat the chametz. And this is what the Mishnah is saying. This is what the Mishnah is saying. The Mishnah is saying, Kol shasha muter lechel kohen b'truma. Anytime that it's muter for a kohen to eat truma, Yisrael Michael Folin lebehema chayv evis. A yid, even though he can't eat the chametz because it's also for him, but he's able to feed the chametz to his dog or chaya or bird. So that's what the Mishnah is saying. With the word mutter, the Mishnah is trying to say that even though that for you it's asur to eat chametz, but as long as in someone in the world it's mutter to eat the chametz, for example, a kohen, it's still mutter for the kohen to eat the chametz for extra hour. So your chametz, even though it's asur for you to eat the chametz, you can still feed it to someone else. Okay. So remember the Mishnah, just to recap, the Mishnah said anytime that's mutter to chametz, you're able to feed it. The Mishnah said 3 categories: behema, animal, chaya. Chaya is treifa animals or wild animals, ephraim and birds. The Mishnah asks obvious question: why does the Mishnah have to tell us sai behemis, sai calm animals, and sai chaya? If the point of the Mishnah is just to tell us they're able to have benefit from the chametz and feed it to someone else, the Mishnah should just give one example and say you're able to feed animals. Why does the Mishnah specify 3 different types of animals they're able to feed the chametz to? Said I need each one of these examples. Now we see this is one of the examples, and we see how Muduyik, the Gemara was Medayik in the Mishnah, that every single one of these examples are negeh. Why? Because he's talking about behema. If I would just say that you could feed a behema, like you could feed a cow, then since an animal since a domestic animal, if it's not going to finish the whole portion, then he's just going to leave it there. Animals, cows and sheep and goats don't hide their food. They eat whatever they have to eat, and then whatever they don't eat, they just leave it there. And therefore, if you're going to put a loaf of bread outside and feed your animal, if the cow is going to eat and he's going to leave over, you're going to be able to see it. You're going to walk outside, you're going to be able to see the chametz and get rid of it. But if it comes to an animal, a wild animal like a weasel or a cat or a treifa animal, which these animals hide their food. If the cat's not going to finish off the food, she's going to take it and hide it. So I would say maybe since the cat's going to hide the food, you're going to be over on Bal Yirah by Matzah because you weren't mevatel this chametz, and therefore you shouldn't feed your chametz to cats. Kamash malan, that we're not chesed the cat's going to hide the food, and therefore you're able to feed to the cat. That's why we said you're able to feed to behema and chay and a wild animal. If I would just say that you could feed, so just say that I could feed a wild animal. Why does it have to say I could feel the calm animal also? Because if I would just say that you could feed a wild animal, I would have thought because I would have thought by a wild animal, even though it's going to leave over food, it's going to hide the food. I think it's going to hide the food. I'm not going to be over on Bal Yirah. Again, there's different isurim on Pesach. There's isur of Pesach of having chametz in your house, and then there's a new isur of chametz, a different isur of seeing chametz. So even though the cat's going to hide the chametz, I'm going to be over on Bal Yimatzeh on having chametz in my house. But since the cow hid it, I'm not going to see the chametz, and therefore I'm not going to be able to Bal Yirah. So a cat able to feed. But a domestic animal. Maybe it's going to leave chametz in your back garden. You're going to forget about it, and you're going to take a stroll in your back garden on Pesach, and you're going to see chametz in your house, which belongs to you, and then you're going to be over not only on Bali Matzah, but also on Bal Yirah. Not only on having chametz in your house, but you're also going to be over on seeing chametz. So therefore, therefore, when it comes to domestic animals, I shouldn't feed the domestic animals. So therefore, the Mishnah has to teach us that you're able to teach us a new hatter, a new chiddush, that you not only can feed wild animals, you can also feed domestic animals. Says the Gemara, okay, so we explain why you have to have domestic animals and why you're able to feed wild animals. Why you're able to feed? Why is the Mishnah list also you're able to feed birds? Says the Gemara, since the Mishnah already mentioned domestic animals and wild animals, we also mentioned birds also. Says the Gemara, continuing, we said you're able to feed, if it's the chametz is mutter, you're able to feed it to animals, and we listed another case that you're able to sell to a goy. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah said you're able to sell to a goy. Pshita, obviously you can sell to a goy. If you can feed it to an animal, why can you sell to a goy? Meaning, if the idea is that it's mutter, if the idea is that it's mutter to have benefit from it, then obviously you can sell it to a goy. I don't need the Mishnah to specify that I can sell it to a goy. To a yid, you can't sell it to, obviously, because the yid's going to be over if he has the chametz in his house, and it's also for him. But for a goy, it's mutter to sell to a goy. Says the Gemara, Lafuki Mai Tana, the Mishnah is coming to exclude. The Mishnah is saying we do not follow the opinion of that Tana. Which Tana? The Tana we learn in the Brayso. Mishame say, Yimkid on Chemtze, Lanachri Ellen Ken, you're there, Bay, Shayich Laken, Pesach. Mishame say, if you have chametz on Erev Pesach, or if you have chametz before Pesach, you cannot sell it to a guy if you know that the guy is going to consume it on Pesach. You can only sell according to Bishami, you can only sell chametz to a guy if you know the guy is going to finish it before Pesach. It's a very interesting shit of Bishami, which you obviously don't pass on like. Now Bishami hold that any chametz you have in your property, you have a chiyuv to make sure it is eradicated from this world before Pesach, say if it's in your shus or say if it belongs to a guy's shus. I don't care where that chametz is going to end up, and I don't care if the chametz changed the owners. If the chametz used to belong to you, you have a chiyuv to make sure that chametz is eradicated from the world. So therefore, you cannot sell. You can only sell a chametz to a guy before Pesach if you know that he is going to finish the chametz before Pesach. Or Beisola, and Beisola argues. Beisola says no. Kol shashim mutalecha. If it's mutter to eat chametz, mutter limke, then you're able to sell chametz also. So from we see that we follow the Mishnah's following Basil's shit and say that no, that if chametz is mutter by no, then you're also able to sell to a guy. And even if you know for sure the guy's going to finish the chametz on Pesach, since it's not in your shus anymore, then it's okay to sell it to a guy. Okay, we're going to stop over here at the bottom of Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph. We're going to continue tomorrow on the top of Chaf Aleph, Amud Beis. Have a good night.